It is Thursday night in East Lansing, Michigan. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Come on in, gather around, grab a beverage, join the fun. Let us know what kind of refreshments you're enjoying on a Thursday evening. Great weather in East Lansing today. Beautiful leaves, beautiful scenery, great Midwestern town, exuding football today. And we're going to have football in a few weeks. No students around campus, though. They're north of campus. I've been driving around a little bit, looking around, just seeing what it's like out there, and it's a ghost town. It's scary. It's spooky. It's sad. Drove by Holden Hall and Chittenden Hall and North Campus and South Campus. Not a creature is stirring, but the trees have turned. All those red maples over there by, Acres Hall over that way? It is beautiful if you've not been over there. Can't wait till we get back to a normal school year one of these years. But football's coming back soon. We're going to be talking Michigan State football tonight. Let me know if the sound is okay. A little bit I actually got a little sunburn today at baseball practice, as a matter of fact, which is not a bad thing on October 8th. Got a lot of sports to talk about. I had a lot of chances for interviews this week. We will be going back over some of those things today. Also, a little bit of news from basketball. Go ahead and post some questions over in the chat area. I've got 9 or 10 questions from SpartanMag members who posted over at the Underground Bunker message board at SpartanMag.com. SpartanMag.com. Been covering Michigan State sports since the advent of the internet, basically, going all the way back to, the late 1990s. We appreciate the Spartan Mag subscribers over there. And over at the Underground Bunker message board, which is the church of what's happening now with Michigan State sports, the Underground Bunker message board, I invited Spartan Maggers to post questions. I will field those questions tonight, mailbag style, and we'll have a lot of fun with that. A couple of nights ago, we tried to go with open mic night, having trouble with OBS. I'm going to change to a different streaming service. It's not really a service. It's an application. It worked great for a couple of times, and it's gone haywire, and I can't figure out what the heck the problem is. And I was angry about it, and I still am, because I want you guys to be able to call in and join the fun that way and get that part of it established here too. But we're gonna reset that and come back at that one strong soon. Some of the news today. Tom Izzo announced 3 captains today out of nowhere. Press release with quotes from Joshua Langford, Tom Izzo, and some others. The 3 captains. Joshua Langford, not a surprise there, now that he's back returning with the program. Aaron Henry, not really a surprise there. He's a junior. A lot is going to be expected of him. He's a good kid, but they're going to be pushing him to be a leader now and not be so up and down as a scorer. And he flirted with the NBA a little bit, maybe a little bit too long. I don't want to say too long for him, but a little bit longer than maybe his skill set should have allowed. But he's back, and they've been playing. They started going 5-on-5 last week, and I hear it's been going pretty good. And Joshua Langford continues to make strides. I've got to put some calls in to find out whether he's full blast, full bore at this time and what he looks like. But stay tuned on that one over the Final Forum for more information about Joshua Langford. Foster Loyer was the surprising one. That's the news. He's a junior. He's a backup point guard. Everybody knows that the keys are going to be handed over to Rocket Watts this year as the lead point guard for Michigan State basketball. And Foster Loyer, he's back and he's committed. And Foster, there's room for him in some 2-guard sets here and there. Maybe he can play himself into a bigger role, but they like the team attitude of Foster Loyer. At this point, it's my understanding that if he's committed to being a 4-minute per half guy, 8 minutes per game, 10 minutes per game, they feel he can be an asset with his experience at 9 or 10 minutes a game and an asset as a leader. So that was kind of the surprise. Foster Loyer, if you talk to Foster Loyer and the coaches, they're going to say, hey, it's a competition. He's going to get his chances. And you know how Izzo goes. If and when Michigan State loses a couple of games, he will juggle the starting lineup. I don't doubt that Foster Loyer might start 1 or 2 games this year when he's trying to send messages to people. You know how Izzo does. But Having Lawyer, sorry about that, almost knocked everything over. Almost knocked it over again. Got to watch that. Having Lawyer as a captain speaks a lot about what they feel about him as a Michigan State Spartan and a program guy. And what about 5-6 weeks from starting that season? And we'll see what's going to happen there. Let's go ahead and get into some other news. Well, we'll go to a question real quick. We'll get into some other news here in a second. Harlan Barnett spoke via Zoom press conference yesterday. That video is available over at SpartanMag.com. Will Peagler spoke today, running backs coach. Actually, did Barnett speak today? I get them mixed up. William Peagler, running backs coach. His video is available at SpartanMag.com. Impressive young coach, William Peagler. Really into it. A lot of energy. Knows a lot of football. He's coached at a lot of different areas. Graduate of Clemson. We'll talk a little bit more about him later. You know, Mel Tucker spoke yesterday. Mel Tucker spoke more in terms of big picture stuff. He didn't speak about position battles. He didn't name many players. He only named 3 players in a 30-minute press conference. He mentioned Antoine Simmons as a leader, and he mentioned Jordan Reed and Justin Stevens as 2 players who have opted out. And in a 30-minute press conference, maybe longer, he only mentioned 3 players. I think he was only asked specifically about some of those guys. I was not able to be part of that press conference. I like to think I would have asked about some individuals, but I can't complain because I was not able to be there. Paul Konerdijk did a great job covering it. And the video, we're putting it together for SpartanMag.com, but frankly, it's a lot of the big picture, macro, cultural things that you've probably already heard from Mel Tucker. Barnett was interesting, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later, but let's get right to the mailbag. Mike from Granville, Michigan, and thanks to all you people who asked questions and posted questions over at the Underground Bunker. Thanks for being Spartan Maggers. We certainly appreciate that. Appreciate your help and support. All right, Mike Granville says, gun to your head, name the starting offensive line. For Michigan State, I assume he's talking about. Will this line finally be able to generate running lanes? That's a good question. That's a big question. If they are able to generate running lanes, as you said, and the run game could be solid to good, that'll make everything easier for the quarterback. It'll make it easier for the quarterback to find the receivers who are pretty good. Tight end's a little bit of a question. We'll get into the tight end situation a little bit later also. One of the questions today is about tight ends. We'll get to that later. Of course, the news a couple of days ago that Jordan Reed, senior right tackle, is continuing to opt out. You know, it doesn't sound like that door is completely closed. It never did before. Tucker kind of made it sound like it's not completely closed, but they've had 8 weeks to work on life without Jordan Reed. And we've talked about Jordan Reed here in the past. And Jordan Reed, Michigan State's Offensive Lineman of the Year last year. It's not really saying a lot because so many injuries on the offensive line. Offensive line was not a strength last year. But Jordan Reed played 13 games. He was rugged. He was dependable. He was functional. Not great. We've said it before that when he gives up a sack, everybody notices it. He might play well for 60 plays, and he did have some good plays, good games. But he gives up the one sack, maybe in a third down situation. Everybody recognizes it, and they ignore the other 59 good plays. I know to be a good offensive tackle, you need to be clean the whole game. I thought he was pretty solid. Certainly not the type of guy. There's certainly not an offensive line that can afford to have their 13-game starter tackle just not be with them. I'm not complaining. I'm not criticizing his decision at all. I'm just talking about the offensive line in general and people that have been critical of him. Hey, he's useful, and they're going to miss him. They're going to miss that functional offensive tackle body because you've got A.J. Arcuri, and I'm guessing Kevin Jarvis now moves out, has to play tackle now. Chris Kapilovic said in the spring that they would look at Jarvis potentially playing some offensive tackle and also inside. He said that in the spring, but they plan to begin him inside at guard. Of course, Kevin Jarvis started at right guard as a true freshman 3 years ago and as a sophomore 2 years ago. Last year began at left tackle because of injuries to Cole Chewins and A.J.R. Curry was injured. So Kevin Jarvis began at left tackle, played 3 games, became injured, lost for the season. But they had it on film what he looked like as a tackle. They've been working on it more. He's added some weight. Now that Reed's gone, I'm guessing Kevin Jarvis moves out to tackle. Is he a left tackle? Is he a right tackle? I don't know. A.J.R. Curry's played some left tackle, needs to improve his run blocking. Pass protection was pretty good in 6 career starts last year. So is our Curry the left tackle and Jarvis the right tackle? Gun to my head, that's my guess. So with Reed out of there and Jarvis going to guard, that increases the chances, in my opinion, of the J.D. Duplain, true sophomore, starts at left guard. We're not here. That's just, and these are educated guesses because Jay Johnson, the offensive coordinator, didn't really talk about specific positions for players. Chris Kapilovic has not spoken with us yet this fall. So I'm guessing Duplain, he finished the season last year at left guard. I'm thinking Duplain at left guard, Matt Allen at center. That competition is still going on. Matt Allen and Nick Samac. Samac, a true sophomore, started a little bit at center last year. Solid player, good young player coming up. Samac is also getting reps at offensive tackle. I mean, with our Curry and Jarvis, you got 2 guys that have histories of injuries. And for various reasons, you have to manufacture some depth there. Not just their injury background, but the COVID situation. And you don't have a lot of depth at offensive tackle at Michigan State. So you've got Samac still repping at center. He's been repping at tackle. An important cog in this whole thing. And then at right guard, you've got Matt Carrick, who started there last year. Functional. Can he take another step? Blake Buter has started also in emergency roles. What do these new coaches think about Buter and Carrick? We don't know yet. Luke Campbell is a guy that looked pretty good early in his career. A lot of starts. Has had a lot of injuries. Last year had a pretty difficult lower body injury. So now he's down 15 pounds. He's still coming back from that. It'd be a lot. I'm gathering that it might be a lot to expect a lot from Campbell anytime soon. Maybe sometime this season. I don't want to write him off, but I've not heard that he's really making strides, and it's understandable. So Carrick and Samac and Duplain, I think those are the 3 at guard. Campbell, have to wait and see. Devonta Dobbs, I'm not hearing a lot from him in terms of player development, in terms of what players did during their time away with COVID or during the COVID quarantine. I'm not sure Dobbs did himself a lot of favors through that period, and he started last year against Rutgers and struggled as a true freshman. Not a big sin, of course. A lot of true freshmen have struggled in the past, but he's a guy that got on the field, saw some shortcomings, needed to really get to work on those things. I'm not sure he has. Gun to my head, our Curry, Duplain, Allen, Jarvis, and Matt Carrick. Gun to my head. Question number 2, Spartan MD from West Bloomfield. Jim, who is the better guitarist, Eddie Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix? Who is more iconic? I had a post about this over at the Underground Bunker message board. I kind of went on and on a little bit too long about Van Halen. Jimi Hendrix, most people agree, is maybe the best rock guitarist of all time. A lot of people think that, and I like Jimi Hendrix. I think I've had more fun with Van Halen stuff over the years. Not any time lately. I'm talking about like back in the old days. But, if I was driving around tomorrow night, would I prefer, I used to love the song Fire by Jimi Hendrix Experience. And, I don't know. Of course, Purple Haze. And Little Wing was good, obviously. Foxy Lady, I don't know. But Hey Joe is great. It's got a great groove, right? And maybe I'm more in that wheelhouse now. But over the years, I was more of a Van Halen guy. You're asking me who's the better guitarist? I'm not a guitar aficionado. I liked Eddie Van Halen better. Most people say Hendrix was better. Who is more iconic? I think Hendrix is more iconic. Just coming from the 60s, the Woodstock, the acid rock stuff, the psychedelic stuff, more iconic. But, now that Eddie's gone, he's getting a lot of his just due, and deservedly so. I think he was great. I mentioned this in the post the other day that Rolling Stone magazine came out with something like 10 years ago. They had an issue, the top 100 guitarists of all time, and they had Hendrix 1, and they had Duane Allman number 2. I can't argue with that. But they had Eddie Van Halen like 48 or 58 or something like that. And I was like, are you serious? Come on, that's ridiculous. I mean, Van Halen changed the way a generation of people played guitar from like 1979, for better or worse, all the way to 2010. Guitar is not really a big part of popular music anymore, unfortunately. But a lot of people think Hendrix was better, and hey, I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that I happen to enjoy more of the Van Halen catalog than the Hendrix catalog. But that's just me. And those people that say Hendrix is the best of all time, I certainly can understand that. And like I said, the Hey Joe groove is outstanding. I mean, right now, in my stage of life, I think Hey Joe is kind of my speed more so than Eruption, okay? But when I was 21, I'm a little different. What was the other one? There's a Voodoo Child. It was great, right? Can't argue with that. So anyway, that's my uneducated opinion on that stuff. Thanks for asking. CJ from South Philadelphia says, thanks for all you and the Spartan Mag crew do. Thanks to you, CJ from South Philadelphia. Basketball is about a month and a half away. Have we heard if Imani Bates will play a season this year for his prep school, given the COVID situation? I've not really heard, but I suspect he'll be playing. Michigan High School Athletic Association is allowing girls volleyball, so I'm guessing there's going to be boys basketball. And that team in Ypsilanti Prep Academy, is going to be more of an out-state type of program. They'll be going out of state to play games. So even if things get snagged up in the state of Michigan, that team can still go out of state and play. So I'm expecting Imani Bates to have a junior season this winter. And I'm still expecting him to reclassify. We'll see where that takes us. He says further, do you think the chances of name, image, and likeness passing increase? Do the chances increase once basketball is played in a bubble this year? Once basketball is played in a bubble this year. Do you know something I don't know? No, you're right. You know, down in Florida, there's going to be some bubble situations there. NCAA tournament, is that going to be a bubble? We've heard some talk about that. But will basketball being played, will that increase the chances of name, image, and likeness? I don't know if that will. I just think it's kind of headed in that direction anyway. The problem is the NCAA doesn't have anybody in the office right now. So they've got nobody making decisions. They've got nobody breaking those things down. However, the NAIA this week announced that they are allowing name, image, and likeness. And I posted on the Underground Bunker message board. I'm not sure that means much because name, image, and likeness, it's all about famous athletes like Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback at Clemson, or Imani Bates when he plays college basketball, or Zion Williamson 2 years ago at Duke. Big names, big people. They would be the guys that would capitalize on name, image, and likeness because they've got an image and people know their likeness and they can capitalize on that. There's nobody in NAIA with a name or an image that they can capitalize on. So like I said on the bunker, I said, you know, the NAIA allowing athletes to pursue name, image, and likeness, that'd be like my wife giving me permission to pursue Jennifer Aniston. Wouldn't really make much of a difference now, would it? So that's the name of that tune. Anyway, I've got to post something here on the Twitter machine to try to invite some of our pals, let them know we got this nonsense going on. There's that. Now let's see if I can find some in the chat area, see who's checking in here. We've got Kenny Roberts batting first and go green. So Tyler Hunt is the tight end. We'll get to that a little bit later. Ed Francis, West Branch checking in. West Branch, nice. West Branch. That's just past the up north border, right? On the eastern side of the state, the Lake Huron side of the state. West Branch. I'll bet the trees look good up there right now. Is it peak up there right now? Because it's kind of peak around here. Might be past peak up there. Not been a lot of rainfall, though. And when there's not a lot of rainfall, the leaves stay up longer. And it's a beautiful thing. Ty Garland checking in. Says, thanks, Comp. Thanks to you, Tyrone Garland out of New Jersey. Mr. Boneman says, hello, Comp. Ed Francis tells me it sounds good. So did Mr. Boneman. Gordon Tonona says, State will start off 6-0. Take it to the bank. You heard it here first. Look at that schedule. It lines up perfectly. So you're calling a victory over the University of Michigan in game 2. That would be something, wouldn't it? There's going to be surprises, just like there's been surprises all over college football, and there's going to be named teams that lay eggs. So it's going to happen in the Big Ten. Who's going to lay an egg? Michigan has been, over the last 2-3 years, when they've been good, they've been real good. They've taken some teams apart, but then they do lay those eggs. So it's a hard read there. So great to hear about Josh, says Mr. Boneman, talking about Joshua Langford coming back. Dan Fernandez is happy for Foster Lawyer. Go over there and post some more questions. We will get to them as we go along. We're going to zip through these questions, get into some more football. As far as news goes, Connor Hayward had a Zoom press conference today. Really interesting. Connor Hayward, of course, last year. 2 years ago, was he Michigan State's leader in rushing as a freshman? I don't know, but he was number 1 coming into the season. Last year, lost his job to Elijah Collins. Then Connor Hayward entered the transfer portal after 4 games to preserve redshirt status. And he said tonight in an interview, he was pretty candid about things. He said he, quote, wasn't in the right frame of mind to stay here, quote, last year. But he is now. The coaches are really happy with him. Jay Johnson said some good things about him last week. William Piegler, the running backs coach, complimented him earlier today. He's been a leader. He's been a good example. The young players look up to him. Connor Hayward's a junior. Well, I guess technically a redshirt sophomore now. But Connor Hayward said that last year after he got into the transfer portal, that he got into some bad habits in terms of eating, started eating wrong and staying up too late, didn't have that discipline. He said in the Hayward family, the Hayward genes, if you just look at wrong food, you can just gain weight by looking at it, he said. And he said he put on some weight, some bad weight. And he said it really hit home when his family, they went to the Pro Bowl. I assume it was the Pro Bowl. Detroit Spartan, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious, where's that bell at? Detroit Spartan going big. Thank you for that wonderful sponsorship and the big tip jar. We appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Detroit Spartan. I saw your post over the board kind of joking about our lack of an IT department here in our SpartanMag.com. We appreciate the community and the size and scope of what's going on with our news organization. But at the end of the day, we're a small business, and I don't really have an IT department. And the thing about my problems with OBS and the streaming service is they are not real great with customer service. And it's not like I can just take it somewhere around town and say, hey, help me with this. I'm on my own with that. So some sympathy tip there, I think, probably fed into that a little bit. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Seriously, thanks. And you've offered a lot of support in a lot of ways. We appreciate that at SpartanMag.com. So Connor Hayward, so it really hit home to him when he went to the Pro Bowl with some family members. They went there as a vacation trip, right? I guess when is the Pro Bowl? The end of February or something? And he said he'd put on a lot of bad weight, and he didn't disclose how much he weighed, but he said his family looked at him and they just said, what are you doing? Are you staying out too late? Are you eating? What's wrong? What are you doing? And that kind of was a wake-up moment for him, and started working out more. And he was never far removed from the program. He was still roommates with Matt Allen, so he still saw the guy, still watched games. And thanks you, Detroit Spartan. Thank you for that. And in case you're not, if people that are watching this on tape, if you're not watching live, sometimes the chat area is available for people that watch the replay, and sometimes the chat area is not available. I'm not sure. There's not really a button that I can push to make it available. It's a YouTube thing. Sometimes it's available where people can see the comments on the replay. Sometimes they can't. So if this is one of those days where you cannot see the chat area. I just want to fill you in. The Detroit Spartan gave us a very handsome personal sponsorship of $99.99 in cold, hard American currency. So I just want to voice that out there for people that might not see it in the chat area. Thanks a lot again, Detroit Spartan. So anyway, Connor Hayward said he got back to work a little bit, and then COVID hit, and he went back home. And to hear Will Piegler, the running backs coach, talk about it tonight, he says he's not sure anybody on the team reacted more positively to COVID than Connor Hayward did. Really got back in the gym with some trainers back in Georgia and reshaped his body. He's back down to 227. He said he played at about 234 last year. Said he was not in great shape at 234. He says he feels better at 227 now. And I've not seen him with my own eyes, but seeing him on the Zoom session today, he looked pretty good to me. My nose keeps hitting this. I've got this nose. We talked about this nose of mine in the past, but it keeps hitting this microphone. It's what I have to deal with. You guys should be happy you don't have a nose like mine. And we talked about my super sense of smell, which is a blessing and a curse sometimes. Mostly a curse. Anyway, Hayward down to 227, and he looked pretty tight to me. He looked good to me, and that's what Piegler said. Now, Piegler didn't coach him last year, so we don't know for sure. He doesn't have really the frame of reference on it, but Hayward certainly feels good. He feels good as a player, feels good as an athlete, and Will Piegler said that he likes the different ball skills that Hayward has and the diversification of talent across the board in the running back room. You know, with Connor Hayward, you know, he's had ability, you know, kind of broke through with a nice kickoff return, I think, against Minnesota 2-3 years ago. Last year got the ball a lot, but, you know, being in good shape is one thing. They say he's running hard behind his pads, even better now. But one of his weaknesses was just vision, that running back vision, or lack thereof. Not hitting things just right, maybe not trusting the blocking. If he gets good, consistent blocking, maybe he'll become better at that. There have been young players in the past that were not real good at reading and following their blocking and eventually learned how to do that. Not everybody improves in that area. Some people have it, some people don't. But he's going to have to improve his vision and running back knack or instincts, if you will. Part of that is looking at film and reading the defense and especially on zone plays, trying to anticipate where that daylight's going to be. Was not great at that. In the past, he needs to be better at that if he wants to carve out a role. Last year, Elijah Collins beat him out for the starting job. So if Hayward wants to get back in there and just become the number 2 guy, he needs to become better at that. Harlan Barnett today, speaking about the corners, he's the cornerbacks coach. He's also co-defensive coordinator, but he's not really the co-defensive coordinator. I think that title has to do with contracts at Florida State and being able to get out of his contract at Florida State to go somewhere else. You know, could he leave and not be defensive coordinator? Might have been some hangups there. It's my understanding. But anyway, Scotty Hazelton, we had interviews with him, Michigan State's defensive coordinator last year. By all accounts, really good football guy, good personable guy, a guy that does not think he invented the game of football. Someone who's open-eared and open-minded to the staff around him, and he will speak with Tucker, and he'll speak with Tressel and Harlan Barnett. Sounds to me like he's excited to hear from everybody in the room. So Harlan Barnett's going to get his chance to weigh in, so will Tressel, and those voices will be listened to by Scotty Hazelton. That being said, Barnett is co-defensive coordinator, but that might just be a contractual thing. But right now, as a cornerbacks coach, Harlan Barnett, Michigan State has probably the best cornerbacks coach in the country. I mean, there's nobody in college football coaching just the cornerbacks position that has his expertise, resume, and the players he's turned out to the NFL. At cornerbacks coach, Harlan Barnett is a face card for Michigan State there at the cornerbacks position. And Harlan Barnett was asked a little bit about some of the corners that he's coaching right now, and I thought one of the comments that he passed along that I thought was worthwhile when he was talking about Shakura Brown. Shakura Brown is a senior from Georgia. Started last year, had a decent year, a little bit up and down. Harlan Barnett's quote, "I definitely see Shaq taking the next step," unquote. He definitely thinks Shakur Brown takes that next step to being a complete corner, not just attempting to be a cover corner, but someone who can play the run and do all the things. Harlan Barnett, with his teaching, and he had a chance to go 4 or 5 days with these guys at the beginning of August when August camp began, and then postponement, then 5.5, 6 weeks in the weight room. Now they're back. Now they're in pads. Harlan Barnett's had a chance to work with them a little bit, get into the film room a little bit, and come back strong coaching these guys. Something they needed in the spring. I thought that these guys really needed, they were really missing. It was unfortunate that they were not able to go through a spring practice with the great Harlan Barnett. Well, they didn't get that, but now that the season is starting so late, they're making up for that in different ways. And I don't doubt that Shaq Brown can really benefit from this time with Harlan Barnett. I mean, Shaq Brown was okay with Paul Haynes, who was the defensive backs coach. You know, there was some slippage last year. Everybody knows that. So now you have Shakur Brown, who's been on the field, knows what it's all about. He's a senior. He's 22 years old. He's getting that man strength, and now motivated for a senior season with Harlan Barnett. And, oh, by the way, NCAA is going to allow him to play next year also if he wants to in 2021. I mean, look at what Harlan Barnett did with, several players, but I'm thinking about someone like Jeremy Ware. Remember Jeremy Ware was a corner when Mark D'Antonio first became Michigan State's head coach, and Jeremy Ware had transferred to Michigan State during the John L. Smith era from South Carolina. Was a little bit of a disappointment at South Carolina, and then didn't do much, I think, in his first year at Michigan State. Came in, played for D'Antonio and company, and boom, became an NFL draft pick. Shaq Brown, could that happen with him? I'm not going to say no, but I'm intrigued to see what Barnett can do with some of these guys. In terms of other defensive backs, Barnett said Dominic Long is a guy that is going to have a spot, unquote. And that's good to hear him say that because, Dominic Brown came in and, Dominic Long is a guy that Barnett helped recruit back when he was here before. Dominic Long, good size, good speed. He's been good in the coverage teams and special teams. Has not really gained traction as a corner or a safety. He's gone back and forth. And came into this year at corner. They were going to give him another shot at corner with Barnett now the coach. And I had heard it didn't go great at the outset. Dominic Long was still not quite getting everything that needs to be done at that position. And then when the roster came back out for the resumption of practice, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Dominic Long was no longer listed as a corner, and he was listed as a safety again. That combined with what I heard, it didn't sound positive. But now I'm hearing that he is repping back with corners again. And Harlan Barnett with some compliments for Dom Long, saying Dominic Long, quote, is a guy that is going to have a spot, unquote. Dominic Long at 6'1", can he play up closer to the box? Can he play at that linebacker level? Big Movie Ron Armstrong and I spoke about this during the Skull Session podcast earlier this week. We looked at Kansas State's film from last year when Scotty Hazelton was defensive coordinator. And just looking at what they did at Kansas State, looked closely at Kansas State's victories over Oklahoma and Iowa State. Now, Oklahoma plays a different type of offense, and might not be applicable to what we'll see in the Big Ten. Iowa State, a little bit more like a Big Ten type of team on offense. Against both opponents, Kansas State went with 5 defensive backs in the slot linebacker position, that area that Michigan State calls the star position. Kind of that hybrid slot. I call it slot linebacker. Some people call it slot linebacker. It's basically the bandit, what John L. Smith was talking about years ago. Somebody that can drop into coverage but also play the run. It's hard to find a guy like that. Kansas State went with a defensive back in that position. It's a linebacker level player. At Michigan State, it's been a linebacker over the years. Third down, they'll go with the nickel defense. But first and second down against most opponents, Michigan State's had an Antoine Simmons in the slot in the past. Now Antoine Simmons has put on weight, 7-8 pounds, which to me indicates maybe he's going to be playing more inside next to Noah Harvey a little bit more. Maybe an indication that they are going to go with a defensive back at that position. If you're going to go with a defensive back at that position, you don't want the guy to weigh 191 or 192. And that's what Kansas State played with a little bit last year. Kansas State didn't tackle all that great. But like we talked about in the podcast last week, I was impressed and Ron Armstrong was impressed. The same pageness of those guys on defense. I only saw one or two miscommunication types, maybe one on a slant. A guy thought that the safety was going to be there, gave up a red zone touchdown. But that was against Iowa State and Oklahoma. Oklahoma had they were number one ranked in total offense in the country at the time when they played. Kansas State beat them. Iowa State last year was the number 2 offense in the Big 12, behind only Oklahoma. And Kansas State held them to like 17 points. One of the touchdowns was the bust I was talking about, where a corner played outside technique, thought he had safety help, didn't have it, slant, touchdown, like 15 yards. But impressive on defense. Hazelton going in year 1 with Kansas State. They'd struggled the year before. I think they went 8-4 in the regular season. That's why Michigan State went out there and offered them 7 figures a year. So anyway, against Iowa State, Kansas State last year, that slot linebacker position was a smallish guy, under 200 pounds, just a safety, right? And it gives you some flexibility because sometimes that guy can invert back and play a 2-deep safety, and the other safety might come down into the box and blitz. So you can change pictures with that a little bit. But at 191, you're not as heavy against the run as you would like to be, especially when you look at Michigan State's schedule with Michigan and Rutgers and Iowa. Well, I don't know what Rutgers is going to be, but Iowa, it's going to be physical. Everybody knows that. Against Iowa, I don't know if they'll. I don't know what they're going to do. That's then they're not going to say. So we'll have to wait and see what they're going to do. I mean, I'm talking about a 4-2-5 type of alignment. My point is, Dominic Long at about 6'1", he's always been a thin guy, but that frame gives him maybe some ability to get into that slot area, maybe. But Mubi and I talked about this also. Dominic Long is 6'2", 195. 6'2", 195. Can he get up there and play that? I think Blake Davis just said, could Darius Snow be the 5th defensive back linebacker combo at some point? That's the question that Blake Davis just posted. And I saw it flash up, and it pertains to what we're talking about right now, so I went ahead and fielded that question. Yeah, Darius Snow could do that. This year, I don't know. But they recruited him last year, and the previous staff recruited him. I looked at him, and I thought he was a slot linebacker type. He doesn't like to hear that. He feels he is a safety. But Darius Snow is the son of Eric Snow. We know that. But he kind of inherited Percy Snow's, thighs. He's kind of got some strength there. I'm not sure he can turn and sprint like a safety needs to at this level. That's one of the reasons he went from 4-star to 3-star. He was beaten a couple times in the T-shirt camps. Then during the season, it's my understanding, he shed a little weight, got a little quicker. So I'm not saying he cannot do that, but when I watched him, I'm like, that's a slot linebacker type of guy. He didn't want to hear it, but under Hazelton, it'll still be called a defensive back, playing 3 safeties, possibly. That's what they did last year. Dominic Long, could he do it? I don't know. Xavier Henderson at 210 pounds. Now, that might be your ticket. And Henderson has put on 5 good pounds, and everybody can see it. Like, man, it's only 5 pounds, but he looks different, Xavier Henderson. Played safety last year. Could he come down into the box and play that a little bit more? Possibly. Anyway, he says Dominic Long is a guy that is going to have a spot. Harlan Barnett did. Talking about, he's talking about other players. You can go see the film at SpartanMag.com. Talking about Kalen Gervin. Chris Jackson has been a surprise so far. I've heard that from some other people. And today, Barnett doubled up on that comment. A guy that's really not been on the field. Got a little bit of playing time, mop-up duty against Western Michigan or something, but he's picked it up. It's a guy Barnett recruited. He recruited all these guys. Julian Barnett, Davion Williams, guys from the Detroit area that have all kinds of talent, and now they're getting coached up by Barnett. They'll be knocking on that door along with Kalen Gervin and Chris Jackson to become that starter at corner opposite of Shaq Brown, it sounds like to me. As far as Kalen Gervin goes, Harlan Barnett's quote said, quote, I see a player with really good technique, he said of Kalen Gervin. Quote, he can run, and that's what we liked about him. That's why we recruited him here. He's fast. He has confidence, unquote. Sounds pretty positive about Kalen Gervin. Now, Barnett's not the type of guy that's going to come out and tell you, hey, this guy's kind of struggling, off the record. You don't need to be writing about so-and-so because he's not really going to get it done. There have been defensive coaches in the past that have leveled with me on those things in the past, and that's helpful. Barnett is such a good guy. He's a program guy. He's going to keep that information on the down low. But when he's saying good things about these guys, it's not a bad thing. Macklin JB from Rochester, Michigan. Let's go back to the mailbag. He says, have you heard anything good or bad about the following offensive linemen? He said, since the seniors have the ability to return, and Nick Samak, J.D. Duplain, and now Spencer Brown is pushing, it's starting to feel like it's time to show out or not for some of these guys. He mentions Mustafa Khalifa, Jacob Isaiah, James Ohanba, and Matt Carrick. Well, Matt Carrick started last year. You might have been thinking about Damon Kaler. I have to wait and see about him. Kaler, he's got something to prove. He was committed to Michigan State, came to Michigan State's camp after he'd committed, and was not great at camp. And I'm not surprised that he hasn't really gotten on the field yet. Khalifa, you saw him against Rutgers last year. Is he a redshirt junior now? He's got to pick it up. Had a shot, wasn't quite good enough. There have been young players like that in the past that have not been good enough, and they've turned it on later, so I don't want to close the door on him. New offensive line coach, new strength coach, gives them all a reset button, so don't close the door on any of these guys. Jacob Isaiah played last year in a fullback situation once in a while, in jumbo sets. So he was making some progress toward getting into that playing group a little bit, but no, I've not heard anything since then. We expect to hear from Kapilovic here in the coming days, soon, I would assume. James Ohanba, the former four-star recruit from Georgia, no, I've never heard a coach talk about him. I've never heard teammates talk about him. We've seen him on the sideline. He's never been on a travel roster. That does not bode well. Now, new strength coach, new coach. It's a reset button. Could he rally? Possibly. But no, I've not heard anything. Now, also, we only talked to Bowman maybe once last year. And, of course, Mark Staten went through that demotion situation as the former offensive line coach. So it was hard to get information on offensive linemen, really, for the last year and a half. Those second-string offensive linemen. We didn't have a spring practice to cover. That would have been another time to take a look at some of these second and third string depth players on the offensive line, young players, reserves, to see what's going on with player development. It's been a blind spot. It's been a little bit of dark ages football going on. We're trying to learn more. It was great to talk with Piegler and Barnett today to learn a little bit more about those guys. And Hazelton shed some light on some players last week also. But offensive line, it's still dark ages in terms of what's going on beneath the surface there. I got to be honest with you, not heard anything about James Ohanba. No news is not good news in that type of situation. Ben from Spring Arbor. He's talking about the Packers game last week. He says, after watching the Packers dominate by throwing to backs and the tight end almost exclusively, I started thinking about Anthony Williams and Connor Hayward at Michigan State, a possible H-back. Do you think MSU has the right pieces in their backfield to put stress on linebackers the way the Packers did? Did Jay Johnson and Mel Tucker feature running backs in the passing game at Colorado? A lot there. Basically at Colorado, what they did with the passing game with backs and tight ends, not completely dissimilar from what you'd see at Michigan State. They did throw to the backs more last year, but they had the guy Alex Fontenot. Alex Fontenot led Colorado in rushing last year with 870 yards. He also had 27 catches. Backup running back Jaron Mangum, 440 yards, 10 receptions. So you're talking 37 receptions there to the running back position. I'll backtrack on what I said a minute ago. That is more than Michigan State's thrown to the running backs around here in recent years. So, yeah, I would expect more of that. And Connor Hayward has the best hands among running backs. But you don't want to get in a situation where every time Hayward's on the field that the chances of throwing the ball to a back increase. You'd like for him to be on the field in pass protection and get some carries just so you're not really, telegraphing what you're going to do. Is Hayward good enough to be good enough in those areas to play enough snaps so that you're not telegraphing? Remains to be seen. Elijah Collins, pretty good season last year, as a redshirt freshman. 985 yards rushing. Can he become more of a threat in the pass game? Anthony Williams was a guy Michigan State initially brought in thinking he was going to be a wide receiver. He might be the most explosive runner of these guys. Have to wait and see on Jordan Simmons, the true freshman. But in terms of the players we know, hey, Elijah Collins is good. Connor Hayward, you know what he is. Brandon Wright's added some weight. Anthony Williams is the most explosive of those guys. I'll put an asterisk next to Jordan Simmons until we see more of what he can do as a player. But this is a coaching staff that likes to throw the ball to the running backs. Anthony Williams, we've not seen it a lot, but it wouldn't shock me if his hands proved to be as good as Connor Hayward's. Connor Hayward played wide receiver a lot in high school. Good hands. If Anthony Williams has those type of hands to go with the explosiveness, then that's a player, of course. Last year, the tight end position, Brady Russell for Colorado had 23 catches and 2 touchdown receptions. Those numbers are similar to Matt Seibert last year for Michigan State. So the tight end's about the same. Jay Johnson says the tight end is the MVP position of his offense, says the quarterback is the CEO, but the tight end is the MVP because they have to do so many things, blocking and receiving. It is a hybrid position. Everybody knows that, a hybrid position. They want to use the tight ends. At Colorado, did they have a deep cast of talent at tight end to take advantage of Jay Johnson's mindset? Not really. Does Michigan State have that type of talent? Well, let's go down here to question number 8 from Jay Bannon out of Sterling Heights. He says, Jim, what do you really see happening in the tight end spot on this team? First of all, isn't it great to be talking football? It's fall. It's football. It's here. It's happened. It's great, right? And I told you people back in March and April when we were all not sure what was going to happen. The NCAA tournament was shut down. And we didn't know what the heck was going to happen in May, June, and July. Had our fingers crossed, didn't know how bad things were going to get. And I said, people, when you get to my age, maybe you'd agree, maybe you don't. I said, people, you might remember me saying this. I'm like, it's going to be Thanksgiving in like 5 minutes. It's going to be I don't know. I can't give predictions. I don't know what's going on, but it's going to be Thanksgiving in 5 minutes. I said that back in March. Those of you that are younger may not agree. Maybe it's been a long 6 months, but for me, you get to be my age. Spring, summer, and fall goes by like boom, boom. Thanksgiving, almost here. I'm talking about the Canadian Thanksgiving. It's in October. But football coming up October 24th, Spartan Stadium. Jay Bannon says, what do you really see happening at the tight end position? Well, it's not Michigan State's strongest, most proven position. Matt Dodson has talent. Achilles injury last year short-circuited his season. He's still coming back from that injury. Jay Johnson was talking about that last week. Dodson, has lost 12 pounds. He's athletic. Is he going to lose any speed from that? Is he back full bore right now? Doesn't sound like it, but I'm not saying he's still hampered by it. But the quote was, he's still coming back from that injury. Good hands, was a guy that they wanted, was always trying to become better at blocking. Never quite showed that type of blocking ability that D'Antonio and Bowman and Staten wanted. But he never stopped trying, and he was a true junior last year. That's a guy, Matt Dodson, if he comes back, plays this year, starts getting some traction. That's my favorite word tonight, traction. With the NCAA rules, he can come back and get a 5th year next year, even if he plays full out this year. And actually, did Matt Dodson? I think he played like 6 games last year, so he would have lost that redshirt year. Yeah, he's listed as a senior, but he'll be able to come back. 6'5", 240. As he matures, he was thrown onto the field as a true freshman, had a bit role, and has just always kind of had a bit role. Last year's starter, got injured. But, so you're asking me what's really going to happen at tight end? Well, it's got to start with Dodson, and I'm not sure he's the starter. He was last year, but question mark. Trenton Gillison down 4 pounds to 245, had a good bowl game, but then also had a fumble in the bowl game. And that's kind of Trenton Gillison in a microcosm a little bit. He's got to shed that, become more mature, more dependable. Adam Berghorst is the guy Johnson was, seemed to be the pleasant surprise based on Johnson's voice inflection when he mentioned Adam Berghorst. Berghorst is up, 15 pounds or 20 pounds, 6'7", 260. Last year began as a defensive end. They needed help at tight end, especially after Dodson was injured. Moved over to tight end. And was solid as a teenage true freshman. Now he's put on some weight. He's 260. They're saying he's physical as a second-year player. True sophomore. So I wouldn't be surprised if Berghorst, can he be like a pass-catching threat? I've not seen it. I don't know. I mean, we know he can pitch a baseball at about 90 miles an hour. An interesting athlete. Can play defensive end at this level. They have him at tight end at 20 pounds. Now they're saying he's physical. Can he be a complete tight end? I don't know. You'll find out when I know. If they really like him, they're not going to be talking a ton about him because they don't want Rutgers to know what the whole game is with Berghorst. They were talking about Tyler Hunt, the former punter, who I think is still punting a little bit, competing for the job maybe. 6'2", 235. He's bulked up a little bit. He was an all-around player, I think, at Gobles, Michigan, and southwest part of the state. But 6'2", 235, that's not huge, right? I mean, it's big for a walk-on punter, but it's not big for a Big Ten tight end. But they mentioned him as a guy that's been impressive, a guy that's kind of helped. In other words, this is a position that needs help. They did not mention Parks Gissinger. Parks Gissinger, out of California, former defensive end, moved to tight end midway through last season because they were low on tight ends all of a sudden. Gissinger's down 3 pounds to 6'4", 235. The coaches didn't mention him. No mention, no news is not always good news. So, Dodson, wait and see. Gillison, Berghorst, and maybe Hunt a little bit. I don't know. So you're asking me what's really happening at tight end? A lot of unprovens, a lot of question marks. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, don't worry. Yeah, Tyler Hunt's great. He's going to be an impact player. He's the next Matt Seibert. I'm not expecting that, but Matt Seibert came out of nowhere as well. And this is an offense that will get the ball to the tight end, or wants to, no matter who it is. Berghorst is a guy I want to see. Can he catch the football? Can he turn and find the football? Does he have that kind of fluidity to him? I don't know. You'll find out when I do. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the mailbag questions, then get over to the chat area and see if we can get out of here in under an hour and 10 minutes. That would be an indoor record for SpartanMag Live. Question number 9, Ray from Estero, Florida. And this is a question I think I saw somebody ask this question in the live chat area. Tyler Miller asked, I'm late in the chat, but is Michigan State recruiting Keon Coleman since he's back on the market? I don't know if it's been answered. Thanks, Tyler Miller, for chiming in. Also in the mailbag area over here at SpartanMag.com, Underground Bunker message board, Ray from Estero, Florida asked, what are you hearing about Keon Coleman's decommitment from Kansas? Is MSU back in the picture? So people want to know this. I've been talking with Corey Robinson a little bit about the Keon Coleman recruitment. And shout out to Corey Robinson doing a great job. Justin Thin doing a great job. Paul Konerdijk, great job today. Konerdijk, great job handling those Zoom press conferences, posting live while the press conferences were going on. Good job with video. Good job with notebooks after those press conferences. Good job, Paul. Corey Robinson, great job as always, keeping that table set with recruiting coverage and his ear to the ground in grand fashion to let us know what's going on with Michigan State football recruiting. And Justin Thin doing all kinds of things all over the map. Really an impressive guy. Love all those guys. They're doing a great job. I'm glad they're part of the SpartanMag.com news organization. Great team we got there. So Corey was telling me about Keon Coleman, and he was talking about him back, several months ago. He committed to Kansas over Michigan State. Keon Coleman, a wide receiver, a big wide receiver, 6'4", 188 from Opelousas, Louisiana. Michigan State doing some more recruiting in Louisiana than they've done in years. Corday Hankton, one of Michigan State's offensive analysts, has a lot of ties in Louisiana, is very well respected, former police officer in Louisiana. So Michigan State recruited Keon Coleman. He's ranked the number 11 player in Louisiana, just a 3-star. But if he were in the state of Michigan, he'd be a 4-star. They rank the stars. They're real tight with the stars in the state of Louisiana. You're telling me there's only like 8 or 9 4-stars in Louisiana? I can't believe that. This guy looks pretty good. Definitely good. Michigan State liked him, committed to Kansas. Now Kansas is off to a terrible start under Les Miles. Les Miles with some connections in Louisiana as well. But Coleman, in recent days, decommitted from Kansas. And he's saying he's leaving it. He's Sounds like he's going wide open again. I wouldn't be surprised if, other SEC schools get in to compete with Michigan State there. But Michigan State, from Corey Robinson's information, Michigan State never stopped recruiting Keon Coleman. Even when he was committed to Kansas, they kept recruiting him. So Michigan State's been in there, foot in the door all along. The recruiting visits have been stopped and tabled, dead period, all the way to January 1st. So there's not going to be any visits between now and January 1st. So will he commit somewhere else and sign somewhere closer to home in December? Recruiting is really strange this year with all of that. You'll have players making commitments to schools they've not visited, signing with schools they've not visited. I'm anticipating more players will sign later. But if you sign later, sometimes you might lose a scholarship slot at your favorite school. So if you really like this school but you want to visit some others, are you going to wait for a chance to visit in January maybe so you can make more of an informed decision in February? Maybe, but then you can lose your slot somewhere. So it's a tough situation for those recruits. I don't envy them in this. So Michigan State's recruiting Keon Coleman on the other side of the country and may not ever visit Michigan State before he makes a decision, but Michigan State is busy with this 6'4" wide receiver. I can just tell you Michigan State never stopped recruiting him. They're going after him. Could be tough to pull him out of there, though, for the reasons I just mentioned, and I would expect a bigger crowd of Southern schools rallying around him also. Question number 10, and the final question in the mailbag portion of the program from Beaumont81 says, what have the coaches been up to on campus at East Lansing? Are they visible? Do they interact with the locals, or do they hunker down in the Scandalera Center? Has Coach D been seen at all on campus? I've not seen Mark D'Antonio. I think he's laying low in the midst of the pandemic a little bit. He's coaching his grandkids a little bit. They're in diapers, his one grandkid. As far as coaches, they're still getting acclimated to the community at large, and the community is still buttoned down to an extent. People are still going to restaurants and stuff, but it's not like the normal situation. And around campus, you've got no students around campus. They're off campus taking online classes, but coaches aren't going to really interact with that a whole lot. When I drive around campus, and it's usually on weekends, I just drive through there to see what's going on. I'll drive by the football building and not a creature is stirring. I'm sure, they're in there during the days, probably not on weekends, obviously. You drive by during practice and you'll see practice going on. But outside of the football bubble, no, it's not like these guys go to the local bingo hall. I think Tucker has gotten out and played a little bit of golf here locally, but I've not heard much more than that. Beaumont81 says, how is the Spartan Fund doing financially? Have there been layoffs at the 1855 building? I've not heard that, but Beekman said that, and Beekman's not necessarily talking about the Spartan Fund, but Beekman said that they expect as an athletic department to break even, and I'm not really sure how they can do that when you're out, $50-60 million on ticket sales. I'm not sure how but he says break even. I don't know. That's what he said. So, I don't know how much they usually, I don't know how much they usually profit. There's no profits this year, obviously. Did they profit $30 million and now they're going to break even? I don't know how they're going to make those numbers agree, but Beekman was concerned but didn't seem like it was an ice age situation. So I don't know what's going on with Spartan Fund and donations. Good question. There's an answer. There's a story there somewhere, but I don't know the answers right now on that. All right, let's go through the chat area questions. Dan Fernandez is happy for Foster Lawyer. Mr. Bowman says, never heard of that running backs coach. That's because he's not been a coach anywhere else. Not a full-time position coach. He's a young, up-and-coming coach. I think he's 28 years old. Attended Clemson, was a guy that was like all over the football building at Clemson, wanting to be able to help in any way possible, right when Sweeney was getting his program started. And he was offensive coordinator at a school in Mississippi. And has had, the thing about Peagler is when you get young coaches like that get that push like he's gotten. Now he's coaching at Michigan State his first time as a big gig at a program like this. When a young coach like that gets that kind of push, you know he's impressed people behind the scenes. And I'll tell you what it reminds me of a little bit in a moment. But Peagler was an offensive quality control coach at Minnesota when Jay Johnson was there. He was a graduate assistant at Georgia when Mel Tucker was there. So when Mel Tucker brought Jay Johnson aboard, Peagler was a guy they both knew about, went to Colorado as director of quality control. Last year, there's a running backs coach at Colorado that missed 3 or 4 weeks for health situations, and Peagler was elevated and became the running backs coach for 3 or 4 weeks, and that included going off campus to recruit. He's an energetic, ambitious recruiter. He wants to get in it and really recruit. So he's a lifer, a laboratory type of football guy, X's and O's, knows the game. If you watch the video, you can see how you can understand why the coaches feel that why the players feel he's a very personable coach. I've mentioned before that I've been longtime friends with Artie Mangum, went to high school with him, and Artie's son, Jaron Mangum, is a running back at Colorado. And I was talking with him a lot back when Michigan State was going through the coaching hiring process and when they hired Mel Tucker. He said, I predict that he'll bring Will Peagler with him to East Lansing. His son was a running back at Colorado, and Peagler was a director of quality control who spent some time as a running backs coach. Artie didn't come out and say this, and I didn't press him for the information, but I got the idea that Artie kind of liked Peagler as a running backs coach more than the full-time guy. And the full-time guy, I can't think of his name right now, but he was a former running back at Colorado. He's kind of a Colorado hero of sorts. I don't know. But Peagler has impressed people along the way. Young guy. So with young guy, recruiting, energetic, ambitious, has a thirst for X's and O's, all that stuff reminds me of a young Pat Shurmur. Back when Pat Shurmur came to Michigan State as a GA and then as tight ends coach at Michigan State, I think Perlis hired him in maybe 92, 93. Saban retained him in 95. And, the day Perlis was fired, when he was talking about his assistant coaches in 94, he said, Pat Shurmur, great future for that guy, great future for that guy. So even back then when Shurmur was, in his late 20s probably, and was tight ends coach, there were mumbles about he could be a potential head coach at Michigan State someday. Never quite worked out that way, but I remember Shurmur in 93, 94, 95, and that's the way Peagler is. Now, Shurmur played here and was a captain for a Rose Bowl team. Peagler will be the first to tell you that he didn't play at the college level, so that part of it doesn't match up. And Shurmur was a Detroit area guy. Peagler is a Georgia guy. So, different from different parts of the country, but I've not seen a young coach this bright-eyed and enthusiastic and respected by older coaches like Peagler since Shurmur. I've not seen that formula within someone since the early to mid-1990s when Shurmur was doing it. So that's my thought on Peagler. You can say you've not heard of him, but once upon a time, people had never heard of Pat Shurmur either. Now, you can say Shurmur had some struggles in the NFL or whatever, but he's a respected coach in the National Football League. He's bounced around, had some head coaching jobs, coordinator in Denver now or whatever. And there were some people at Michigan State that really wanted to go after him for head coach just a few months ago. But that's pretty. What I'm trying to say is that's pretty good company from my frame of reference. You've not heard of him, but He's got a chance to make an impact here. Go watch the video over at SpartanMag.com. You'll get a sense for him, and you can see why. You'll probably see why he meshes well with a college program at this point. And you can tell he's been waiting his whole life for this type of opportunity, and he's fired up about it. Tom Kelly says, do you think Harlan Barnett will be at MSU for the rest of his career? That's a great question. I mean, Barnett was really well compensated at Florida State. I don't need to get personal on this, but you can guarantee his bank account's pretty healthy right now. And you can get a lot of house in East Lansing for, you don't have to pay a fortune for it. So you can live really well here and sock away money at a job like that. He's already got a lot of money. I'm getting into personal stuff here. My point is, what is he, 53 years old? He's went down there and gotten out of town a little bit and done the coordinator deal. Didn't end up being, the grass didn't end up being so green on the other side. Did he leave hoping that he could come back as a head coach someday? Probably. Didn't work out. He's a humble guy, humility, loves the program, loves the university, loves being around here. His buddy D'Antonio is going to be around. So, yeah, I could see him staying here for the long haul. I could see that. I could see Hazelton doing some good stuff, and if they win like they're hoping to win, I could see Hazelton getting some opportunities, and I could see Barnett sliding in there and taking that gig, coordinator at Michigan State. And you can make nice money as a coordinator these days, we've seen. Now you can make generational money as a head coach. So does he want to get back in that shuffle and try to climb up those ranks again? Probably not. I'll bet if you asked him right now, I'll bet he'd be very comfortable getting it going with Mel Tucker and riding out his career here as coordinator extraordinaire. But you never know how things are going to change and what's going to happen with coaches and so forth. But you're asking me, do I think he ends his career at Michigan State? I'm going to say more than 50% chance of that. But, things didn't work out at other places, and sometimes coaches end up, back in that churn mill of coaches. So I'm going to say 51% chance, or at least. And I will say more than that chance that is his plan, if he allows himself to plan. Some of these guys are just like focusing on Rutgers and their recruits and their room, and they don't look ahead too much. Barnett's a good guy. Glad he's around. Mr. Bowman tells me that Jimi Hendrix hands down. Card Shark Chris says, make riffs great again. I agree. I mean, the guitar has been left behind in many forms of popular music. Not that I know a lot about popular music anymore, but I'd like to see somebody bring it back somehow. I don't know. Old Tug, the bell cow is here, but he's late. Old Tug says, I'm tardy, more tardy than Ken Tinney was his first week at campus. Wow, Ken Tinney, John L. Smith recruit, defensive back from the East Coast somewhere. A lot of talent, but he lasted a month, I think, and he was gone. Mr. Bowman says, the bell cow in the house, now we can start. Cartero 917 says, hey, Comp, do we have a legit shot at Keon Coleman? I just talked about him a minute ago. Detroit Spartan coming strong. 99.99. We'll ring that one again. Mr. Boneman with a wow. Detroit Spartan. Cartero 917 says, also, are we still primed to land Antonio Gates Jr. on Saturday? Yeah, the junior from the Detroit area. Good-looking wide receiver, 6'2.5" at least. It's my understanding Michigan State's in solid ground with him. There's more to that story there. I've got to look into that more. Did Antonio Gates Sr., did he cross paths with Mel Tucker in the NFL? Did they cross paths here when Antonio Gates was here for a short time in the Nick Saban administration? I don't know, but things look positive for Michigan State, and Antonio Gates Jr. would be a great way for Michigan State to start that 2022 recruiting class. Jonah Wilson says, I lost my place. Says, any word on Antonio Gates for Saturday? I think that was the one right there. Blake Davis. Blake Davis says, who do you like best at quarterback and why? Quarterbacks, first time that's come up. It always comes up, but there's new information now. Well, Tucker says all three are getting reps. And that is true. We're getting, 16 days from playing Rutgers? By now, you would like to get down to 2 quarterbacks, but they're not. Because Theo Day has flashed some talent. Now, sometimes things still get a little bit foggy with Theo Day, but he's done enough to stay in that race. And, Rocky Lombardi's Rocky Lombardi. He's improved. He'll need to improve a lot to become a winning Big Ten quarterback. Peyton Thorne's not been on the field yet. He's the swashbuckler, playmaker, but as coaches always talk about the need for consistency, that competition is still ongoing. The coaches obviously did not have a spring practice to vet through it, but it's a 3-player battle, and that's not insignificant. Then you can say, well, if you've got 3 quarterbacks, does it really mean you have 0? Maybe. But the news this week, it's a 3-quarterback battle. 3 are still in it. That is not insignificant. I've heard Theo Day's flashed some talent, and they've been impressed with arm and frame and athleticism. You just need that fog to lift. Will it ever? I don't know. Who do I like best at quarterback? Theo Day has a lot of physical talent and high ceiling. I'm just not sure that light is completely going to come on. I think I just have to think that the guy with, we know what Rocky Lombardi is. Can he totally change himself? Doubtful. He could be better, but is he going to be really changed? I don't know. So I think the hope is Peyton Thorne, because the unknown is undefeated, right? And we know a little bit more about those other guys. So if you're asking me, who do I like best? For Michigan State, I like the potential of Peyton Thorne, because the potential of the other two, the ceiling is just kind of a little lower. Theo Day has the physical ability, but are the lights always on? I don't know. You combine Peyton Thorne with his buddy Jaden Reed. That's an interesting part of that whole deal as well. Jaden Reed's going to be an excellent wide receiver this year, and they've been boys for a long time. That helps a quarterback. Mr. Boneman says, are there any of our cornerbacks that we could leave on an island and not worry about them getting beat deep? No. Shaq Brown, like we said earlier, Barnett believes that he can take that next step. Take a next step to being a Darqueze Dennard or Trey Waynes? No. Good solid corner? Perhaps. Josiah Scott? No. So, Kalen Gervin, they like his speed, they like his confidence, they like his technique. Could he become a Josiah Scott? He's not as good as Josiah Scott at the same stage of their careers, but Kalen Gervin has potential to be quite good, right? Angelo Gross, true freshman. Barnett's all excited about him, but he's a true freshman. Have to wait, put him in the oven a little while longer. But you're asking essentially, does Michigan State have a cover corner you can put on an island and just shut someone down? No. But they've got a great coach trying to work it out, and there's some talent there, but I'm not ready to say it's Trey Waynes, Darqueze Dennard talent. But we didn't know those guys were that talented when they walked in the door either. But it wasn't long after they walked in the door that you started hearing special things about them. Doors Fan 91 says, what happened with Alante Brown in MSU? Was hoping he'd be a Keyshawn Martin type. Nebraska fans fired up, thinking he's going to be a stud. Yeah, I don't really know the whole story on that one. Let's see. Steve Orta. I have a little trouble scrolling here. Steve Orta says, I think we're in a good spot to get Michigan early. Maybe so. College football this year, we've seen, like I said, some big programs, some name programs lay some eggs, especially early in the season. Michigan will have already played Minnesota. Good hypothesis. I don't know the answer to that right now. Rob South finally here. You're late, Rob South. Detroit Spartan says, I don't think Harlan's looking to leave East Lansing anytime soon. I'm not surprised to hear that. Rob South says, I'm tardy. Didn't get a notification this time. I'm not sure what's going on with the notification situation. YouTube's a little bit different with some things. They've new coat of paint. Some of it's cracked a little bit. So anyway, Detroit Spartan says maybe Gross down the road. Cover corner. He's a physical guy. Is he like a cover, physical corner? Can he really turn and run like Denard Waynes and Josiah Scott? We'll find out. I loved Angelo Gross's film. Physical guy, can turn his hips. Does he have that top end speed? Remains to be seen. If he does, he's going to be dangerous. Angelo Gross, true freshman. We're hoping to get the streaming situation together so we can get some calls. I really liked the way that whole thing was looking, changing that up at least once a week. I'm disappointed we couldn't do that earlier this week with the SpartanMag open mic night. You know what we call open? You know why we call it open mic? Open mic night is usually something you see at a comedy club, right? We just got an open mic and we can go up there and just take over. So when we get that going again, like we did last week, Kelly Spartan came in. And I left him on the horn for like 7-8 minutes. It's not like other talk shows where you where you come in, you give a comment, and you got to get off. No, we'll get off the line. We'll give you open mic for a while. So we look forward to expanding in that direction as soon as we get the tech together. I'm still angry. I'm going to be working on it. I've got other stuff I have to work on also. Going to be busy this weekend with some stuff, family stuff, so it's kind of hard to get it all sorted out, but at some point that's on the docket for sure. Anyway, appreciate all the support. Detroit Spartan, thanks to you. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and make sure to give us a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Go over to SpartanMag.com, become a SpartanMag member. We need them. We love to have new subscribers. Go over there and join the fun. Everybody, thanks for tuning in today. Have a great tomorrow and a great weekend, and we'll see you next time, probably early next week, from East Lansing once again with SpartanMag Live. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for checking us out.